I knew that I wanted to have a farm. I never had a farm. I always wanted to have a farm, and I thought this was the perfect opportunity. So I started researching what kind of animals I wanted to raise. I knew I didn't want to raise anything big because I'm home alone a lot, and that scared me a little bit. So I was focusing on goats and sheep. And when I learned that cashmere comes from goats, I knew that's what I wanted to do. My grandma taught me to knit when I was, 8 or 10 years old. She taught me to knit and crochet. Of course, I didn't stick with it as a child, but I picked it up again as an adult before we moved here. So being a knitter and a crocheter, I knew when I saw that cashmere comes from goats that that's what I wanted to do. I'm Beth Bonert, and I own Mountain Hollow Farm here in Tazewell, Tennessee. We're a cashmere goat farm. I grew up in South Central Pennsylvania and lived there my whole life till we decided to move here in 2007. It's kind of cool where we live. It's like 10 minutes from Kentucky and 10 minutes from Virginia. Natural fibers, and cashmere especially, are just so wonderful. I like to knit mostly with cashmere, of course, but also merino wool, which is very soft. The feel of the yarn in your hands is so much different from like the cheap acrylic yarns you can buy at the big box stores. It's just wonderful. It just feels so good. And I say, if you're going to spend that much time handling a yarn, it ought to be something that feels good in your hands. We have 15 goats right now on the farm. Goats have wonderful personalities, just like humans. We've got shy ones and we've got outgoing ones. We have little devils and we have little saints in our goat herd. In addition to that, we have 6 Shetland sheep, llama, and 4 Angora rabbits. And we harvest the fiber from all of those animals to turn it into yarn. We send the fleeces off to a mill and have it spun into yarn, and then they send the yarn back to us and we sell it in our store. All goats, except for Angora goats, have 2 hair follicles. So they have a down and a guard hair, like a lot of dogs are double coated. That's how all goats are, except for Angora goats. The cashmere is the down. So while all goats have down, not all down is considered to be cashmere. It has to be under 18.5 microns in diameter. So a micron is 1/1000th of a millimeter. So the down has to be very, very fine. It has to be at least 1.25 inches long, and it needs to have some crimp, which is like a curliness in the fiber, in order to be considered cashmere. Goats grow cashmere seasonally. So they start growing it in June, usually, and they grow it through December. And then they hold on to it, usually till February or March. It depends on the goat as to when they start to shed, but they start to shed it naturally, usually in February or March. In March here on our farm, we have goat combing days. We harvest all of our cashmere in March, sometimes a little bit going into April, because some of them, just like a dog, some of them shed out all at once and some shed out over time. So those that shed out over time especially, we have to comb them out once, and then a couple weeks later we'll try and comb them again. And I say combing. The way we harvest the cashmere from the goats is to brush out the cashmere with a dog brush. It is called goat combing. I suspect because the original or the official tool to use is a comb-like tool. What we use is the slicker style and the rake style dog brushes. That being said, it's easy. Anybody can do it, but there's also a technique that I'm not sure I can fully explain it without demonstrating it.
But not a lot.
And what I've noticed is, we have a lot of people come here during the goat combing days to comb a goat. And they are not as efficient at it as those of us who have done it. So yeah, there is definitely a technique that you build up over time, but I think it just takes practice and some mentoring. I had no mentoring when I started this, so I had to kind of figure it out on my own. When we tell people about goat combing days, I think at first they're amused. The thought of combing a goat, why would you do that? And when they come out to do it, they're always kind of in awe, because when you comb that cashmere out, the goats feel soft when you pet them, but that guard hair is really not that soft. I mean, we think it is because we're not comparing it to anything, but when you get a big old fluff of that cashmere out and you hold that in your hand, You just realize then at that point how much of a difference it is between the guard hair, which you're petting, and the cashmere that you're feeling. So people are kind of in awe and they have fun with it. And some of the goats have personality and they do some shenanigans that make people laugh. And it's a lot of fun. Cashmere really is a luxury fiber, and it's a luxury fiber and it's expensive for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is a very fine fiber. It's very, very soft. If you would look at the fibers, each individual hair underneath a microscope, you would see it's very, very thin. And that's what makes the yarn so soft. The other thing that makes it expensive, besides the fact that it's so desirable, and of course there's the whole supply and demand aspect of it, where cashmere is a relatively low supply, because a cashmere goat only produces on average 3 to 5 ounces of cashmere per year. So it takes about 4 goats a whole year to grow enough cashmere to make one adult-sized sweater. So it's a long process. We will probably have one like kitchen-sized garbage bag full of cashmere to send to the mill. So compare that to sheep's wool, where on a decent-sized sheep, you'll get a whole garbage bag off of one sheep. It takes us 12 goats to fill a garbage bag. It gives you a little bit of an idea of the supply and demand phenomenon that happens with cashmere. It's like Christmas Day when we get that box of yarn back from the mill, and we cut it open and we just pet on it and we feel it. It's a knitter, crocheter kind of thing. You love the yarn. We sell our cashmere by the ounce. We have it made up into 1 ounce skeins. It's 50% cashmere, 50% silk. To give you an idea of the size of that skein, 1 ounce doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not, but it'll make a medium-sized scarf. And oh my gosh, I have learned so many things in farming that I never ever thought I would do or could do even. I used to get faint just going into hospitals, and now I give shots, I do minor surgeries. You know, I've learned to skin a goat to save its pelt after it died. I never thought I would be able to do things like that. And farming toughens you up, and I say that in a good way.